Okay. Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I understand we have some equipment challenges, so we're asked that we lean forward and speak into the microphones.
All at one time?
At least.
As long as we don't have to sing, we're okay.
We can get everybody together around that one and do the same thing. Okay. Any modifications to the agenda as presented?
I have no changes or additions.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. No special presentations tonight. Consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on to new business, award of contract for insurance broker services. Amanda.
Believe me, they can hear me.
Good evening.
You probably need to speak into the microphone as well.
Like, all over here? Okay. So I'm guessing now you can see the memo. In front of you, have a request to award a contract for insurance broker services. On March 7th, 2019, a solicitation was released seeking qualified firms to submit sealed proposals to provide insurance broker services for the county's volunteer fire and rescue agencies, property and casualty, and accident and sickness insurance. We received a total of 4 responses, and interviews were held with the top 2 ranked vendors. After thorough review by the selection committee of the proposals presented, staff recommends a contract be awarded to Indigo Risk Advisors. Their proposal highlighted quality service, professional staff, and many years' experience providing broker services to volunteer fire and rescue agencies. We currently use Indigo to provide property and casualty insurance benefits, so they have experience working with the county and know our needs.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Amanda? All right.
Motion to approve? Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right.
Great.
And you have another.
I do. This one, Jim, would you like to come up? This is about Esri, and he knows more about that than I do.
Okay.
But we have a request for a contract with Esri, who is offering the small municipal and county government enterprise agreement that will grant Orange County access to Esri term license software on an unlimited basis. This will include maintenance on all software offered through the enterprise agreement. The agreement will be effective on the date executed and will require a firm 3-year commitment. This enterprise agreement will be a crucial first step towards the county bringing GIS data creation, data editing, and data governance in-house and operating as a true enterprise GIS, interacting with existing county software and management systems. The cost of the agreement will be $35,000 per year, totaling $105,000 over the course of the 3-year commitment. Funding has been sourced in the GIS software system CIP line. Esri provided a quote to the county on April 10th, 2019. A sole source justification form was completed by the county's GIS analyst and approved by both the county attorney and county administrator. The form was displayed the week of April 29th. It is recommended by staff to enter the Small Municipal and County Government Enterprise Agreement Program with Esri for expanded GIS software capabilities. That being said, if you have any questions, I'm sure Jim can help you with that.
Can you, in a sentence or two, describe the capability you're trying to build with this?
Absolutely. So currently, right now, our current capability, we have one single-use desktop license, which basically means I'm the only one that can do anything. So this enterprise agreement, it's going to give us more users, it's gonna give us unlimited desktop technology, and basically the great thing about that will be is that through that we'll have more online users, which means more customized web applications, more catered use to staff, and it will also allow us, the big thing that what I'm trying to do with this is will be to move all of our external GIS applications in-house,
Okay.
which will be possible with this agreement.
And what kind of time period have you laid out to make that kind of a move?
So we currently have a contract that we are executing with Timmons Group, and they are gonna be the ones who are going to, once we execute this contract, they're gonna be the ones who go in. We're gonna procure the equipment, but they're going to configure all of our servers right now. They're gonna migrate the existing data over,
Okay.
and
Question, you say Timmons Group. Is this the same fine Timmons Group that does our current 911 GIS?
it is, yes, sir.
It is crucial that Timmons does what we want them to do instead of what the hell they want to do.
Absolutely, agreed.
Bottom line,
Yes, sir.
they are famous for overcharging
Yes.
and telling us what we're going to do.
Yes, sir.
So it is crucial. that
Sounds like
you
this
all-
this at least is a big step towards putting us in control of that,
It is.
which we have not been historically. so.
Absolutely.
The
So,
reason we're using Timmons as, for help with the migrations, that we already have the relationship and the contract with them, so it's
Sure.
a faster turnaround. So with them and the timeline that we've set out, once we get the licensing, which I have our rep in Esri, who basically, once we sign it, they'll give us everything. We're looking at probably a mid-July timeframe of having everything in-house.
are they doing an hourly billing on this, or how is their billing done on this? Is this just a contract?
It's a contract, it's by task. So we have firm line items of, this needs to be done, this time frame. Here's our requirements.
And that's all within the contract price?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good, very good.
All right, I have a question then, because it's sourced from the CIP for the first year. What's the sourcing for the other years?
We will include that in the GIS operating budget going forward.
Okay, so it's gonna be moved from
It'll
CIP
be-
over into operating budget for
Yes,
the-
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
One of the things that we had is when we did this CIP budget, we didn't have Mr. Whip or we wanted to at least put some type of numbers in there that would get us going, knowing that as time went on in implementing, or standing up the GIS, we'll start migrating operating expenses over to their baseline budget, and we'll treat it just as part of the budget process.
okay.
And then-
I just wondered where the funds were coming from, so.
It also sounds like there will be some overlap between the contract with Timmons and what they've been doing and getting this fully implemented and the like. So there's a little bit of a funding overlap required for that, but it doesn't sound like it's a lot. Do you have that number? Do you know what
I do not offhand, but I can get that for you.
support? All right, any other questions?
Any idea timeline that you're looking at to bring the different things in-house?
Within the contract that we currently have now with Timmons, there is a line item that says migrating web GIS to us. So since the contract, their timeline they proposed to us is going to be executed by mid-July. I'm hoping, that by mid-July, probably, kind of end of July, we've worked the bugs out and we've got all the source code and everything. So I'm hoping by, late summer, early fall, we've got that in hand.
So it sounds like this calendar year at
Okay.
least.
Yeah, it
That's-
will be this calendar year.
That's-
The goal of this will be to take control of our own data governance
Right.
and handle it and produce quality updates when and where we need them.
Excellent.
Okay, any
So
other
moved.
questions? So moved, got a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, show no old business. Department Director, Constitutional Officer reports, Porter Road Collection Site Recycling Compactor. Aaron?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In March, as you all know, we transitioned from sorted recycling to single-stream recycling using county waste as a vendor. In that transition involved changing of our open-top roll-off containers to 10-yard front-load dumpsters. The transition was well-received. Most of the feedback received from the citizens had to do with difficulty emptying large recycling containers in those dumpsters. I think most of the members of the board have received at least one or two comments about that. Working with county waste and our collection staff, we have found a solution by placing a compactor at the Porter Road collection site. This will give a central location for those citizens who choose to use large containers, a site where they can come and dump them into the compactor themselves, and also allow the site attendants to keep an eye on the material being dumped into that compactor. I provided two options to do this, one being the county purchases a compactor, and two being that county waste rents a compactor at no charge after we pay to convert the compactor to a single-phase motor. Most compactors come three-phase, and we don't have three-phase accessible at Porter Road site, so we'll have to convert it to single-phase. To purchase a compactor, it would be total cost of $34,600, and to rent a compactor would be $13,000.
There's one piece missing.
What percentage of the recyclables go at Porter Road?
I don't know offhand, but a very small percentage. It's not one of our busy sites. We identified that site because it's a central location.
One question. It's 3,000 to convert?
Yes. Basically, county waste has equipment on, they own already. They don't have any single-phase equipment, so we would be purchasing a motor for them to put in their unit.
There's no three-phase service, actually?
There is, it's not at the scale house. We only have single phase at the scale house. We would have to get Dominion to trench over across the lot.
That's more than $3,000.
Didn't think that was the road we wanted to go down.
Is there any, when I first looked at this, I thought, well, why would we ever want to purchase one if we can have one basically
For nothing, free.
rent-free? Yeah. Did I miss something in that, or is that just an odd situation because they happen to have them on hand?
They have them on hand. I'm not sure how many they have. They did offer to furnish the first one at no charge, just to get our business. We just don't have any, we don't rent any compactors. We own all ours. So with any rental equipment, you're kind of at the mercy of the vendor. So if it breaks down, you're on their timeline.
At this price, why aren't we considering doing it at more than just one site?
We don't have any, we can certainly look into that. That was an initial discussion we had when we started having this feedback. And we just got to the point where we wanted to make one adjustment right now. And if that's something the board wishes to look into, we can certainly do that.
The idea of having the one site is that we thought it was gonna cost there was an estimate that it was gonna cost probably $40,000 per site. We just didn't think it was something that we would wanna get into, putting them in multiple places. If you've got one, it should go in a central location, and that way people who are whose recycling process is such that they want to use the large bins, they will have a place to recycle. And presumably the recycling will go up if we put this in, because people will go there because of that. Obviously, I'm suspicious that they will give us one. I doubt if they're going to give us more than one.
No, they'll give us one at no cost. Each
Right.
additional one will be $300 a month.
Okay.
What's that?
It'll be $300 a month to rent a compactor for each additional compactor after the first
for
one.
each one,
Yes.
Plus the electric.
plus the electric hookup.
Plus getting it in there, some, you know, I mean,
Some of
some
Yeah,
them are
this,
sites.
going
yeah,
to.
this site, it'd be $10,000 for the site work, Lake of the Woods, I think it would be closer to 15,000.
I'm not interested in putting more money in there. I think we should be on county-owned property.
Barbersville probably saying about $10,000, it just depends on getting the electricity there, and
Do we have what a lifespan of the compactors are?
I don't, you know.
Any idea? I mean, I know we don't have, we've had, what, 2 go down in the last year?
We have, but prior to that, we got almost 30 years out of ours,
Right.
out of the trash compactor. Which is stretching it. I'd say 20 is like,
And recycling's not gonna be used as much, I don't think, as a trash compactor, you're not gonna be running it back and forth as much.
Have we seen
Uh,
one of
but-
these things? Does it solve the issue of getting the stuff dumped in? We've seen the design and it's low
It would.
enough and big enough and all that.
It would be just like our trash compactors where it's about waist height and you dump it over the side.
I'm looking, I've got 10 bins down there that are filled up every week and overflowing by the time they get to emptying them. It would seem that, given the volume, that Lake of the Woods is a good place for one.
I'd like to see us relook at,
I can understand you thinking that, but it wouldn't be of any use to people on the other end of the county.
Well, but I'm saying that don't see people traveling, 20 miles to dump it, just because we got a bigger bin.
Does it make any sense? It sounds odd, but to reverse it, have the compactor be the recycle and then have other boxes that are for anything else? I don't know what the volume is.
I think, at one time, Lake of the Woods was doing it, and the eastern end of the county was doing about 40% of the total waste coming into the system. I'm not sure, I would imagine that given that we're stealing bins from
We
the other end,
had
the other end of the county.
we had the compactor go down to Lake of the Woods a
I
couple
know,
weeks ago, and it
you
was,
guys were
all our
really,
drivers could do to
really
keep it.
handled that very well.
yes.
I was
It was
impressed.
all our drivers could do to keep that site from closing down.
That
so.
was well done.
So the proposal in front of us is to put one at Porter Road and
is this a new compactor that they're providing?
No, this would be one they have on site. And I don't know how.
The purpose of this, the idea behind putting the compactor at Porter Road was not to increase the amount of recycles, but to give people who
An option.
needed a different option, give them that option. And so it's not a matter of, you know,
It'll be interesting to see how much volume increases down there, just,
well, it will be, and if it winds up not being used at all, then we can, I mean, I think it will be used, but, I mean,
The only stranded cost would be the refit of the site for the compactor with concrete pad,
I'm-
which allows you in the future to put something back there. So
I'm wondering if don't we have unmanned bins out here at Pro Auto Body?
Yes.
I'm wondering if we maybe should think about just moving that site to Porter Road, because it's a problem, because it is unmanned.
Correct.
do we have any additional staffing to run this compactor down at Porter Road?
No, it'd be the same site attendant. So,
Okay.
and it's similarly staffed as
All right.
other sites, Barbersville and Locust Grove.
Because somebody needs to push the button to comp.
Correct.
From what I've seen, whenever I've gone out there, that should not be an issue.
Yeah, they keep an eye on you out there, you know. Some people try to get away with stuff.
all right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you do have a balance of $122,681 in your contingency. If you want to move forward with this option number 2, I would suggest using that as a way, as a funding source, but I would defer to Ms. Bradley because we are in June of the year, and there may be some other line items that we can spread some of these dollars from and hold the contingency neutral.
If we went with option 1, where would you pull the money from?
Same place.
Okay. I was just curious, because you said if we went with option 2, so.
I'm assuming the discussion hasn't been both from the same source.
And option 1 is that would be a new compactor.
Option 1 is new compactor we purchased from our distributor.
Well, the thing with option 1 is, if everything works out great, that's fine, but if we find that this is not effective as we hope it is, 3,000 sounds a lot better than
Well,
24,000.
it does to a point, but both times we've had the compactor sites go down, we don't have a spare compactor. So if it didn't work out, we would then have a spare compactor.
Except for this compact single phase.
What's that?
Well, and it
What
doesn't.
are the other ones?
Oh, you mean if we bought it?
Three-phase.
The others are 3-phase.
How big a motor is this?
Drawn up,
I'm
15,
also
I think
I'm
15
not-
horsepower. It's either 10 or 15 horsepower.
It might be
borderline, but-
cheaper to
Yeah, it might be
go
cheaper to
ahead
run
and do
three-phase.
3-phase.
'Cause I mean, single phase is okay at that size, but it's beginning to,
It's not economical.
it's not economical, right?
That's,
The physics work, but the economics don't.
So, do we wanna know, what it will cost to get 3-phase there?
How close is it? You say
It's behind the scale house, kind of up the gas line. So I don't know, offhand, a couple hundred yards.
Would that be entirely underground?
Yes, we'd have to come around the scale house and
Why?
down from the west.
Why can't we put it on a pole?
Dominion probably would prefer putting underground, but we can certainly ask them to put it above ground. I think
I
it
would
comes
say
in.
It's something they
Big
do
tall
for us
truck taking
before
it
they
out.
go away, since they're shutting down.
yeah, exactly.
Is a-
I would suggest that we check into the price of having 3-phase run to the site location
And then rent?
before we decided which one to go with, because
If we bought one for there, how difficult would it be to move if we had to, if one breaks down?
It'd be some work.
I-
It
Big,
wouldn't be an
big,
over.
huge job.
But I
Not-
wasn't-
Not an operating spare.
no, what I was saying was if we found out that it wasn't used,
Okay.
it wouldn't just be a waste. We would then have a spare that could be put into that position instead of,
But it wouldn't be something where you just kinda swap it in for a month and then put another one in.
No, you'd be,
no, you'd
one,
have to.
Yeah,
it'd be a replacement.
it'd be a replacement.
Right, and then you could pull the broken one out and
And
have it
refurbish.
refurbed. But that would be a 2-day job instead of a 2-week to a month job.
While we wait for parts.
Right.
But you did, I don't know how you did it, great.
I didn't do it. Mr. Young got on the phone and did his work.
See if we can catch up the conversation. Are you leaning toward a purchase
I
of a 3-phase?
think that would probably be more economical in the long run to go with our own 3-phase operated, plus if we go with option 2, hopefully it wouldn't, but the thing got struck by lightning or the motor just decided to fry, we're out that money. That's just my thought on it.
We're out what money?
Well, if you're
They're not
converting it
gonna,
over to single phase, but if you forget the 3,000 to convert it and apply that into taking it from a pole down,
okay.
I mean, we're not talking about putting in huge cable,
Right, okay.
but that would replace the same thing, and then we still get the thing for free to try, and, but it's three-phase, and if I wanna move it, we could move it.
Yeah, okay.
We find we want another one, we can always come back and go buy one.
All right.
So, Aaron,
And
it occurred to you
at some point, we need to,
let you know what the board wants you to do.
I'm gonna try to
Okay.
help them out here. Would anyone like to make a motion?
well, the one final thing I'd like to say is, at some point, if we don't have three-phase there, we should have three-phase.
Well, yeah,
there.
that's right, that's right. 'Cause at some
So,
point-
it sounds like what we're saying is, we would like to find out what it will cost to put three-phase in. I think we need to know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dominion could come back and say it's gonna be 50,000, I mean, you know. So don't we need to know that first?
Yeah.
And then we can, once we know that, we can then,
Is that in that
Move
$10,000 estimate, that bringing the three-phase over?
No,
None of these are
That's not
three-phase.
it.
that's running overhead from the scale house down to the compactor site.
Okay.
Okay, I would make the motion that if it's not more than $3,000, that we go ahead, run three-phase over, and get the rental dumpster, the rental compactor.
Okay.
Does that make,
I'll second that.
That's a motion, and that has been seconded. I dare to ask, but is there any more discussion or questions?
well, does anybody think 3,000 is a reasonable amount for Dominion to run three-phase?
on a pole, I would think.
No, it's, I mean, I don't
Okay.
see the wire as that much cost. It's sinking a pole in the ground,
You know, it's,
picking up from where it is. I assume there's a box over where, somewhere where there's three-phase ends that we could tag into. and-
They'd have to tap in and put set a box there, and then however they choose to run it, either overhead
I'm
or
gonna take,
underground.
Well,
I'm gonna
if
take,
it
I'm gonna
terminates
take,
in some
I'm gonna
place,
take
there
the
should be a
over on
box
the
there.
3,000.
Yeah.
It actually goes all the way around, it goes out to the leachate pond on the other side of the landfill, is where it runs. That's the.
how is that metered? Is there a separate meter, or would this be a separate meter?
This be a separate meter here, we'd have to set a meter base.
So the idea is to pursue option one with an additional $3,000 added.
No. Option two.
Option two,
But put the
you
money,
subtract that 3,000 for a single-phase motor and put it towards
Three-phase.
the three-phase power.
would you be willing to give a range of 3 to 5
Yes.
to run the three-phase, just?
I-
It would
I
be-
would-
I don't want him to have to come back to us if it's $3,600.
36, yeah,
Not to exceed 5. and-
Not to exceed 5.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
I would amend it to say that.
all right. Do you?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have a motion. It says option two, but bring in three-phase not to exceed 5,000. Any more discussion or questions about that motion, that amended motion? All right, let's vote
Does
quickly.
does that take away the 3,000 to convert the compactor?
Yes.
Yes, because it would be
So
three-phase.
we're using that, 3 to 5 of that.
Yeah, we're not gonna buy them
Got
the
it.
motor, so.
Right, right. Okay. All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
Who was the second?
Teal. I know, it was a long time ago.
Kurt sits back there and says, thank God. it
We
wasn't
sort of
me.
ambled
Answer
through that
all.
one.
All right.
I'm not letting that one go.
To be continued. All right, county attorney's report?
No report.
All right. County administrator's report.
Yes, sir. Chairman, members of the board, I have two items for you. Helping out Stephanie on the public statement of public necessity for the public safety radio tower. As you know, at your April 23rd meeting, you authorized us to give notice for a public comment period according to our section 7853 of the county zoning ordinance, requesting comments on the siting of our towers for the public safety radio system. In your report was the one comment that we received. It was a comment that expressed hope that proposed tower near the commenter's home would accommodate commercial cell service as well as future broadband service for nearby residents. I believe Ms. Straub did contact this person and spoke with her, and she was excited about this going forward. We have not received any other comments when the period closes on the 24th. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you would, authorize the chairman to issue a written determination that the proposed telecommunication antenna structures for the public safety radio tower project are a public necessity in accordance with Section 70-853 of the Orange County zoning ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next item I have, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, back earlier this year, well, end of last calendar year in December, when the board received the gift, the donation of the Bluebell Building, you were approached and certainly shared with me, and I think your colleagues, each of you have been approached, or many of you have been approached by various organizations expressing an interest in have certain ideas about the potential reuse of the building. And I was unable to quickly run down the meeting, but I think it was in the January meeting. You talked about the idea of holding a work session on this, and I suggested in the June, beginning in the early summer timeframe, after budget, but before we got into too much of the summer season. The idea at that time was having an informal work session at the airport, doing it on a Tuesday, but not the board meeting day, and late afternoon, early evening would be best. I bring this back to you because of that conversation and what you had said about scheduling a work session. But before doing so, wanted to get an idea from you all on how you want that to be conducted. There's an idea that I know the schools have expressed interest in maybe a continuing technical education program there. I know Parks and Rec has expressed interest. I think James Madison Museum folks, and there may be some others in the community. Is this something that you would want proposals from them, or just to start a process of you guys talking about it? And I open it to you for some direction. So.
My recollection was we had that discussion, and then after that discussion, we had some more and determined that we were just going to let it sit for a little bit, and I believe that Mr. Goodwin and I were going to get together at a future date, which is sometime right
Sure,
around this
okay.
time period, to start working on that. That's only my recollection.
The process and the minutes were a little vague on how, and so that's why I was bringing it back.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's.
Okay,
Okay.
so unless,
Because there's
We
still.
should meet soon. about
we
this.
should meet soon, yes.
Because the other option that we talked about is that there's the issue of the consolidated county garage type facility.
Very.
And so, I think the other part of the discussion we did have was that it sounds like a multi-purpose use is probably something that would
Versus a
best,
single.
benefit the community generally, as opposed to handing the whole thing over to one organization. One organization that contacted me would take the whole thing. They don't need the whole thing. They couldn't possibly use the whole thing, but that doesn't seem to matter to them. So,
I
Yeah,
would hope
because-
that we would be considering expected growth in county activity or functions that this could accommodate, as opposed to having to build something else.
Yes, I think that was a lot of our discussion was, we need to look at this also as a phased process. We may have groups that use it in the near future that long-term may not, and as things like, especially county garages,
Anything that the county's gonna, I mean,
Right.
we're growing and we've got facilities that need replacement and, just looking at it from that perspective to say, okay, how can we take advantage of this to keep the tax rate down?
well, in that case, I would say that if staff
we-
can
Yeah,
schedule.
we can
for us.
get Mr. Goodwin and Mr. Crozier together and start a process.
should we set a target of having, either having a work session or having you guys report back to us as a committee in, 60 days or something
I would-
about like that.
I would go with that, sir.
6 days, so that would put
Fine.
us, June, July, say first meeting in August?
First meeting in August.
Okay.
You're allowed to get one 60-day extension if you need.
Okay, thank you.
By unanimous consent.
Anytime we do something, anytime we do something here, they get 3-year extensions.
That's
you know,
right,
they-
I know.
Okay. Well, there, I think there still is a lot of interest in,
There absolutely is, and I've actually had a couple of different conversations with people that will probably end up in that space.
Yeah.
And they're fully aware of it.
all right,
Right, I've got the guidance I needed.
Excellent.
all right, board comment, anyone?
Yeah, Jim LeGrand from the Community Services Board came down to give a presentation to our Lowland group, Jim McGrath. And basically, he thought I was gonna be there, so he brought 5 copies of their 2018 annual report, which is far more detailed than what we get when they come in to talk about the budget. So I'm just passing those out.
Okay.
Talks about all the things they do. There's some money stuff there, but I think it's a little bit more information on what they actually get done.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to continue on with it. Like I said, I was made aware that Dominion is shutting down their facility in Orange. I don't know what sort of revenue we pull in from that, but in talking to Felix, he assured me that we would maintain the same level of service that we have from the provider that I have across the street. I don't think that's going to happen. The town is somewhat displeased, and in their next meeting, they're looking at a response asking Dominion not to leave, and it asked if we would join in asking Dominion not to leave, displacing the 23 employees into either Manassas or Charlottesville, and moving the service out from here. I just don't think we're gonna get the same level of help when things go awry from Charlottesville, unless they prove to be like Alan out of Louisa for VDOT, which I find is a rare exception. I don't see that it's going to benefit Orange. And since they're guaranteed to make a profit, I'm not sure where it's, although they may think it's more efficient, I don't know where it's better for us.
Did I read something that it's made it sound like that certain functions were gonna remain, that there was gonna be a part of, and I don't know whether it's just, well, I mean, it wasn't clear what their plans are, but they're not leaving entirely, was the impression I got, so, but I don't know what part's leaving, do you?
All I know is all
I think we got
23
somebody out there
employees
who
are
knows the
going to
answer.
be moved.
Mr. Reporter, would you like to report?
It may cost you $1 to get this newspaper, but, the word that Dominion gave, they're keeping the transmission utility office, which is the big lines that they just put up. That will remain, but all the maintenance crews and the line crews will be dispersed. So those will be answered out of the Dominion Charlottesville office. And, the spokesperson from Dominion said, you're not gonna worry about any of the service, it's already be the same. But, no, the way the news release was written, it was kind of vague, as if to say, we're moving all these people out, but we're still gonna keep some stuff there, but not any of the people who would be responding to down power lines and the transformers blowing and things like that. No.
So it's just a transmission piece, that's,
Just that big, yeah, and they were unclear how many jobs that was, but it did seem like it was.
thank you.
And the tax liability on that property is about $105,000 personal property tax, real estate tax.
Thank you. I hadn't had a chance to ask that question yet, but,
That's why I'm here.
so, my opinion is in our benefit if we don't let them move away without saying something.
You wanna just the chairman write a letter to,
Or do a
Mr. Carroll,
resolution,
or a
or?
resolution?
I would say a resolution, like I said, I know the town had in mind, I talked to the vice chair, and Rick said they were going to look at doing something, and we're hoping we would do something in conjunction with them.
Sure.
Do you wanna go ahead? I mean, I can kind of come up with the idea of what the whereases would be. Whereas long Dominion service, distribution, responsiveness, tax, jobs, those kind of things, or do you want me to contact the town manager and see if there's a joint resolution that you all could be prepared and brought back to you? Or is time, I'm thinking timing may be a little of the essence here.
Two separate.
Yeah, I agree, we should do something separate.
And we should CC our state representatives.
Yes.
You wanna authorize such a resolution and move forward, or you wanna wait till, see it at a meeting, or?
I think that I would entrust the chairman and the county administrator to put something together that'd be appropriate.
And I would second that.
I was okay until you got to the word appropriate.
So I'll,
I mean, this is not a difficult,
No,
it's not a heavy lift.
And that's
Right.
why we're taking.
Okay.
I'll pair an appropriate resolution to voice the board's questioning and, you know, and not understanding and displeasure with this decision by Dominion.
So let the minutes reflect the board's consensus is that we respond by resolution.
The board is distraught, and we would like to make that fact known to Dominion.
Okay, any other board comment? All right, any questions on this?
Just because they move away doesn't mean we'll, get a smaller electric bill.
Any question on information items? All right, appointments? Actually, I have one. Ms. McClung has agreed to continue to serve on the library board, and I'd like to reappoint her.
I'm just waiting on an official acceptance on the planning commission appointment, so.
And I'm waiting for that as well as for the BZA, although that is that's a recommendation to the court, not an appointment.
I do have a question on that. If my person said that they would be willing to do it, we would have to wait 2 weeks in order for them to get appointed, because the planning commission is on the 6th.
Yeah, meets week from Thursday. They could come to the meeting and
Just not
be
vote.
impaneled, and then you all could ratify that.
This
that
person,
appointment.
you're not prepared to make the
Until-
appointment tonight?
Until, I'm prepared, but until I get a firm answer.
Yeah, I understand, okay.
How about we do this, if, once the person assumes that accepts it, then I'll communicate that to the full board. They'll come on the 6th, and then the board would ratify that appointment.
Okay, yeah, I expect an
Whatever,
answer
June
anytime. So,
When is the time frame that we need to be thinking about the Board of Assessment Appeals? Putting that together.
That's in the fall.
Is it-
Huh?
That'll be in the fall.
Let me have Ms. Bradley prepare an update of the timeline for that, so at least get that on y'all's radar. I'll do that for the next board meeting.
In the past, we've had a sort of a template that we use for who we appoint.
Yeah, there's a realtor.
One from line A and one from line B, and there's several that are kind of perpetual long-timers on there, so.
Yeah, let me have her bring a report to you all on that.
Well, my long timer's passed away, so I need to look somebody else.
Yeah, we did our equalization.
Condolences.
We did our equalization resolution last year in October, or last time in October in 2015.
Yeah, this is the Board of Equalization. I don't recall whether we had a Board of Assessors.
I think we just.
What are,
yeah, we-
what are the constraints, so we have some idea before I look for somebody else?
There's like a real estate professional,
We should look at the list from last.
30% should be commercial or residential real estate appraisers, other real estate professionals, builders or developers. So 30% need to be in the real estate.
Okay, so two of them, do we go with five? All right,
And this is by district, is it not? Or are they at large? How did we do it last time? I think it's by district, isn't it?
I don't think we did it by the district, let me double check. I don't see that we did it by district.
Okay.
You may have informally done it by district.
I think it's usually done by district, but,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That way everybody-
I mean, I had someone from District Two right now. But that could have been just happens. Call your attention to the last item on our list there, the Social Services Advisory Board. I spoke with Mr. David earlier today. You see a note there about Ms. Coleman not being eligible for reappointment. I asked the question about why is that? Since this is no longer the governing board as it once was, it's now an advisory board.
Yeah.
And so I asked him to look into that. It may, I'm telling you this because it might affect your appointments going forward. Because there is with the governing board, I guess there's a two-term limit, two consecutive term limit. And so you might be thinking about your respective members and the possibility. It could be a bylaw change that's necessary. Unless you have
No, I don't
an
have
answer
a-
yet,
a-
but.
a update on you, for you. Why don't I add that to my report for the June 11th, because that way everybody.
Well,
Her term.
date is June 30, so.
Yeah, no, I'll get you the answer out to him as far as being able to reappointment. I think when it was a governing board, absolutely two concurrent terms, or two, two consecutive terms, thank you. Now that it's an advisory board, did those bylaws switch to, or did that switch to a guideline or a bylaw that we could amend to have consecutive terms? So, I'll get an answer, quickly. But I'll have this as an agenda item for the 11th, that way make everybody know.
Okay, so we have one appointment pending, which is Ms. McClung. All in favor of that appointment, say aye. Aye. All right, unanimous. Calendar. No items, no public hearing schedules or anything else. Any questions on the existing calendar?
Only thing I don't see on the June calendar, I believe it's just something to be noted, is the VACO Region 7
Is on
meeting.
June.
I believe it's the 13th, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
June 13th, yes, sir.
Okay,
And we've talked to them and they've got everything.
right. Okay.
What time is it on the 13th?
That's,
It starts at 6 o'clock, or 5:30, excuse me.
You'll have a busy evening.
5:30 to 6 for dinner and then 6 the program. I talked to Ms. Agee last week.
15 minutes.
Do you all not eat anymore?
Oh, we still eat.
You do still?
Oh, yeah. Everybody just gets here early.
Oh, okay.
Troy Wade went forward because they didn't have food in time.
Also, there's the tire recycling apparently scheduled for June the 15th. And we don't have a June 15 on our calendar, but.
Really? I hadn't even heard about that this
Well,
time.
I didn't know about it until Mr. Frame made me aware of it.
Yeah.
That sound right, Kurt? He looks too surprised for it to be.
Yeah, he's looking at Aaron, and
yeah.
we hadn't got any word on it this time.
No. The only reason I knew about it was that Lee mentioned it to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's brochures out, or there's, announcements out.
Yes.
We just didn't tell the board.
Okay.
Please tell us.
So we can't bring our tires.
That's right. Please let us know.
Mr. Johnson has a gross of them to bring.
So it sounds like we need to add a calendar column as well as a date for. Saturday?
June the 15th.
June
Okay.
15th. Do you have a time for that, Aaron?
Yeah, it's 9 to 12, is it?
8 to noon.
8 to 9.
Any
How
other
many-
calendar items?
How many trucks do we have this year?
I don't know.
I think they were looking at 2 trucks again.
I think it was the same as last year.
Yeah, yeah. But they're setting them up differently so people don't have to lift the tires up into the truck.
It'd be a shame if somebody had to lift tires up into a trailer truck.
Somebody who's not used to it.
And what are we doing in terms of limiting the number they could bring this year?
I think the same rules as last time.
Is it 12 tires a load? 12 tires. I don't have any of that information.
Yeah,
So
that-
apologize.
Do we have a partner again this year with somebody helping us?
We don't.
So this is all county this time?
Did stream sweepers not want to, or?
If I recall, and Jason would know more about this, but I think it was a matter of funding from street sweepers. They kind of reorganized.
The other thing that I have, it's not on here, and I've lost the date, is the visit to Harris, they're for the radio system testing.
Yes.
Anybody have a date of that? I know it's June.
It's June,
It's
it's June
Soon.
Yes, it is.
19th. And it'll be a full day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meet down here in 7:30
Yep.
and
Be back about 4:30.
get back about 4:30.
So that's I didn't see that on the, on the calendar either. So. Okay. It's a long calendar discussion.
Certainly seemed to be a lot of weeds tonight, Mr. Johnson.
A lot of worthless weeds.
Yes.
All right.
One quick update, Mr. Chairman, while we were going through the weeds, I looked up the advisory boards,
Yes,
and they're still limited to 2 consecutive terms.
they are,
I
okay.
I was just dialing in on that too. 63.
You getting the same thing?
Yes, sir.
Must be the same website.
All right.
All right.
How
We're-
long did it take to download that?
I was there right when he was picking up.
All right. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Orange County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matters. Discussion and consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose, where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of public body with respect to voting and social services. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel with respect to an easement, the landfill, environmental issues, and a subdivision ordinance issue. And whereas pursuant to sections 2.2, 3711, A3, and A8 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Orange County is hereby authorized discussion of forestated matters in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're in closed.
Members of the board, to the best of your knowledge, were the only matters discussed in the closed meeting, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and that only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. Mr. Crozier?
Aye.
Mr. Frame?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. White?
Aye.
Mr. Goodwin?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, it is almost 7:00. Anyone signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public comment period. And we have 4 public hearings tonight. Public hearing number 1 is SUP 1901, application by NAMAC to amend existing SUP for kennel structure. Sandra, you want to introduce this to us?
Good evening. This is the chairman has said, an application to amend an existing special use permit to allow the addition of a small structure at Country Club Kennels to provide for housing for a small number of rescue dogs, separately from the dogs that are being boarded. The prior special use permit was approved in 2009 with conditions. The proposal before you would provide for no addition to the number of dogs, total number of dogs on the property, which was capped at 80 dogs. But really, the conditions of the 2009 special use permit were rather specific with respect to the structures to be on the property, which is why we did ask them to come back before you to amend that special use permit. So the conditions have been, the conditions that were proposed and recommended to you by the Planning Commission would allow for minor changes to structures in the future without the need for another use permit should that need arise. There was no public comment offered at the Planning Commission's hearing, and the Planning Commission voted, oh no, I take that back. There was public comment offered. Mr. Crozier spoke as a citizen in support of the proposal. There was no other public comment offered, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Okay. Any questions of Sandra? I can't find it at the moment. The condition, the 2009 conditions still apply except for the structure, the addition of the structure and the ability to modify, make modifications to the structures. Is
Yes,
is that my understanding? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you. Okay, we'll do the applicant. Pardon?
Yeah, we're gonna look at it. Is the applicant here?
Oh, I should say, yeah, the applicant would like to, yes, if you have any comments you'd like to make, sorry.
I thought I had to, so.
I need to put the camera, the computer down again. So. Yes, sorry.
I'm Austin Nama, good evening. I'll just pass one of those around. This gives you just a brief summary of, who we are. Can I put this up here?
Sure.
I just want to show you the plot in a little more detail. So in 2003, we came for our first initial special use permit to open Country Club Kennels and Training. In 2009, we added a second building and came at that point for the second amendment. Now we just want to put a small trailer in the back to house some homeless dogs separately from the boarding dogs. So we've been doing it since 2003, and the main thing I want to stress is we're not asking for additional number of dogs. Still capped at 80. Just a separate structure to put some homeless dogs in, just keep it separate from the regular boarding dogs. The first page just gives you a brief overview of the timeline of when we opened up and expanded. The second page shows you the 23.5 acre plot that we own there. You'll see all the structures are on the front third. So the next page gives you a little detail of just that area right there. The pink area is that trailer. It's not 28 feet long. It's more like 22 feet long. I think they added the length of the tongue in there for towing. So it's about 12 by 22. The yellow depicts some additional fencing we'll put in. The last page shows you a picture of the trailer. I apologize for the quality of it. I got it off the internet. I do have a clear picture on my phone if anyone's interested in seeing it, but you've probably seen them on Route 3. Presidential Resorts auctions them off every April. We purchased one of those. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Question for you,
Sure.
the plat that you showed us, which is, I guess is the fourth page back, shows a drain field area. Are you proposing to make any connections to
Is that-
using that?
On Lot 2?
Well,
Lot 2 that's their drain.
that's, okay, all right. That's
Ours is, if you look.
Can you show me on that one?
This is our drain field right here.
Okay, all
It
right.
shares with the house right here
Yeah.
and the kennel.
Yeah, okay.
shares the same drain.
Right, okay. All right,
Yeah, that one above is lot number 2, it's a 5-acre parcel.
I got it, okay. All right. Any questions, applicant? Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Do they get sofas?
I'm sorry?
Do they get sofas too?
We'll set them up nicely.
Okay.
I bet you will.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Now I'll open the public hearing. Anyone signed up to speak? Okay. Close the public hearing. All right. Any questions, comments, motions?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Whoever got it.
Yeah. Got a motion and a second. All right. Any further discussion?
I'm not, no.
Speak now or
No,
we're gonna vote?
they've been wonderful neighbors, both business-wise and otherwise. And I did originally speak against them opening up their kennel back in '03. And they proved me totally incorrect in my assumptions.
Oh.
Just another flip-flopper.
That's new. I know. And she's got it written down, so, you know.
I don't even have to put a leash on my dog when I open the door. He's ready to go in.
Nice. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, public hearing number 2, SUP 1902. Sandra, you have introductory remarks here?
I do, just a few general comments. The application is before you for a special use permit to allow up to 4 livestock animals on properties owned R2. Properties 9.275 acres in area. The Herndons have indicated they would like to have animals to allow their children to participate in 4-H, and it was their desire to have the animals rather close to the house, as close as practicable. This particular property was the subject of a special use permit, which was granted in 2008. And that permit, it was for 4 horses. That permit is expired because the approval was not pursued. So that particular use permit is no longer valid. The conditions that were proposed are very similar to the conditions that were attached to the approval for horses. So it's in that respect, the approval would be similar, but just for different animals. There was no public comment offered at the commission's hearing, and this, they also are voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Okay. Any questions, Sandra? All right, thank you. And the applicant, if you'd like to make some comments?
Good evening, my name is William Herndon. Many of y'all know me as Chris. My wife and I have applied for this special use permit, mainly for our children to raise 4-H animals. My wife was active in the local 4-H here in Orange, and the property is was currently zoned with a special use permit for up to 4 horses. We're not trying to ask for anything more than that. We're not going to bring a commercial herd of beef cattle in or anything of that nature, put up a big hog facility. We'd just like to have it amended and, applicable to, up to 4 cattle for our kids to raise in the local 4-H county fairs and things of that nature. And we appreciate y'all's consideration and time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, Chris? All right. Okay. Open the public hearing. Anyone signed up?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Close the public hearing. Okay.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Make a comment is that being in the cattle business myself, I can tell you the fencing needs to be pretty high quality fencing, a little bit different than the horses, but from your application, it appears that you recognize that, so don't be stingy with your fencing. Just as a, not as a condition, but just as a, just from experience, so. Okay,
Well, having, with him being from Orange Tire and the long history of Orange Tire supporting 4-H, it seems appropriate.
yeah, I agree. It fits with the community. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, public hearing.
We got dogs, we got cows.
Yeah, we got dogs and cows. What's next?
See you later, Austin.
Okay, public hearing number 3 is adding language to it's a text amendment for language in the subdivision ordinance, section 54-123, regarding existing private road. Senator, you want to speak to this as well?
Planning Commission considered at their April regular meeting draft language that had been provided to us by the county attorney. At their public hearing, the Assistant County Attorney Lansing did a great job of, I think, clarifying the proposed language for the commissioners. There was no public comment offered at this hearing, and they voted unanimously to recommend approval. Was apparent that this is essentially clarifying language for the process that was outlined in this section of the subdivision ordinance, whereby the subdivision agent would have the authority to approve a subdivision on a private road on a road requiring no extension is already subject to a recorded private road maintenance.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't see anyone in the audience ready to speak to this one, so open the public hearing. Anyone signed up here? Okay. Close that public hearing. Okay, any either motions or comments or questions?
I just think the adjustments are appropriate.
I actually ran into a situation where this applied, where a road had been built, I think it was about 8 years ago, something like that, and a person was splitting off a piece of property to have his son build a house, and apparently one interpretation of the old language was that he needed to hire an engineer, spend $25,000 to come and dig up the road to prove that there was a road there and it was a certain depth and these kind of things. There was no extension of the road, and there was already a maintenance agreement in place. And while the language didn't exactly say that he had to do that, it was ambiguous enough that one could interpret it that way if they were motivated to do so. And so this cleans that up. So that's at least one point of origin of this, and there might have been others. That's the ones I am aware of. So, I will point out that if there's an extension of the existing road, then you have to go through the entire process. This is only where the road already exists. So, all right, there a motion?
So moved to approve.
All right,
Second.
motion second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Need a roll call, Mr. Chairman. It's an ordinance.
Oh, an ordinance, sorry, yeah, sorry, roll call, yes, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin?
Aye.
Mr. Crozier?
Aye.
Mr. Frame?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. White?
Aye. Okay. Passes 5-0. Okay. Public hearing number 4. Zoning text amendment dealing with Division 13 for the mixed-use developments in the GWAP area. And you got multiple duty tonight.
The Planning Commission also reviewed the draft text for this amendment at their April meeting. That at that time it had come to us from the county attorney. At the public hearing in May, there was some discussion among commissioners about the genesis of the proposed revision to section 70-567D regarding the minimum area devoted to non-residential uses in a mixed-use development. And there was some discussion that the standard, as proposed to be amended, that would allow for potentially a minimum of 100 acres. There was some feeling that might be too small a minimum if there were a very large tract involved in the proposed rezoning. But nevertheless, there was no public comment offered at the Planning Commission's hearing, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of the proposed language.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's open the public hearing. Anyone signed up to speak? Okay, close the public hearing. In part, some of this arises as a result of questions that were asked by a civil engineer, I guess, working for one or more of the landowners in the GWAP area. And you'll see several things that talk about sidewalks and these kind of things, but the main change, I think, is the one you see in the 7567DB, as Sandra referred to, which in essence is capping the commercial space. The issue, as it was described to me, goes something like this, that at some point, the area in general is only going to support a certain amount of commercial activity. In shorthand, it was described to me, we're not likely to be able to support another Central Park size regional shopping area, and there's no vision that this becomes a regional shopping area. And so the question was, so would you reject a mixed-use development plan that had a substantial, hopefully economically viable commercial area, even if it didn't meet the running 30% tally? And so that was the question that's really put on the table. Is there a point at which there's, my word, not his, there's a saturation point for commercial development on any one, as part of any one project? It seemed to be a consideration worth our, looking at. So that's where we are.
I've talked to Jim about this a little bit, and I'm still, I think it's hard to believe, but I think we may be creating a problem in trying to fix one.
Oh, really?
No, it would be unusual. But,
yeah, that would be really unusual.
It seems to be, I mean, we would say 30% of gross acreage of the site, or 100 acres, whichever is less. So, the applicant who's got 500 acres would have to devote at least 100 acres
to commercial,
which is 1/5 of his parcel, his or her parcel. Whereas someone who's got 10,000 acres would only have to 200 acres. So it seems like, at the very least, what we're telling developers is, if you want to build a bunch of houses, then you need to put a big tract together. And it seems like the antidote to somebody who's got a big parcel and because I understand that we can't, I mean, there's no point in building, it's like some of these over in Asia, they built entire cities, but, no people in them.
Right.
We don't wanna do that, but it seems the antidote there is to simply say, well, divide your parcel into something that's manageable.
Right.
Come back to us with a 400-acre parcel and.
Then it's
you
not
know,
an issue.
And then 30% of 400 is a very manageable number. So I'm worried about the I mean, yeah,
Well,
to the extent that we're actually trying to have truly mixed use, then I'm concerned about where this leads us, because I think it will allow for a huge housing tract. And so it's not really mixed use. If you got 100 acres of commercial and 1,900 acres of houses, on a 2,000-acre parcel, then that's not really mixed use. Only in the most technical of senses is that mixed use.
Nor is it a walkable neighborhood.
Yeah. And I'm also, I mean, that's a philosophical problem. I also am a little worried about how this is worded, because it says minimum area devoted to non-residential development, yet down below we find out about open space.
Well, I actually thought the better fix was to clean up the language and have it read something like 50% in total had to be non-residential. That's it. It just says half the land, half the parcel has to be non-residential, which could be commercial, open space,
Or it could be just residential and open space.
or it could be just
No
residential
commercial.
and no commercial.
So you're not really getting a mixed use then.
Well, that's not mixed use, so I would suggest that if you did say 50%, then you would have to say that of that 50%,
Well, that's where, I mean, Tom and I talked
20%
about,
of that 50% would have to be commercial, and that way you are requiring a commercial component. So they could have it 50-50, 50 commercial and 50 residential, or it could be, you could also put you could also say that at least 20% of it has to be open. So then you've got, your commercial range could float between 10 and 30%. I think of the 50%, is what no, 10 to 30% of the whole thing.
right.
And your open space could float between, say, 20 and 40%.
That would deal with this guy with 2,000 acres trying to put in 100 acres of commercial and 1,900 acres of residential. So you create an open space requirement as well.
Or I guess if I'm a little confused, if there is also a requirement of 20% open space, then it would be 100 acres of commercial, 1,400 of residential, and 400 open space. Does that add up to 2,000?
That's close. I think you're getting it. Yeah, I mean, that's the way the math would work.
Yeah,
Well, I guess the issue that caused me to raise the question was that would we want to reject a plan that proposed to build something less than sort of a Central Park size commercial space, which we know in all likelihood would not be viable economically. You still have a population there.
But they wouldn't have to do that. They could subdivide and make it a smaller parcel. I mean, this is only gonna come into play on a major parcel. Because we're maintaining the 100 acres.
Yeah, I don't think there's any parcel that big. I think the biggest one is a few hundred acres that even exist down there.
Well, but parcels can be put.
But they can be put
parcels
together.
Put together.
Right.
Well, even with the parcels put together, the terrain down there is not going to support development of a lot of that acreage.
No. I can speak to that.
Yeah, that's,
It grows trees, but it's not gonna grow
I think what we wanna see an appropriate balance between residential and commercial, so that we're not just cranking up, costs without getting some commercial benefit.
But our expectations have to be, measured, that we are not have a commercial requirement that, makes this whole district, irrelevant.
But again, this is the plan development mixed use that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, there is one for residential. I mean, there's one that's purely residential.
Right, that's what I'm saying. In this case here, it's plan development mixed use, so.
Mr. Chairman, you can defer decision. I mean, we've had our public hearing. We don't have to have another public hearing, because,
All the speakers would have to come back for another meeting.
exactly.
Yeah, that's.
And so we can, even if you would like, we can defer decision, and Brian and Sandra and I can see if we can fiddle with this language, and if the chairman would like to, maybe the four of us can meet and.
I mean, the language as it's proposed here is a little bit awkward. I mean, I'm not,
That's why if you do a minimum, 30% or 100, whichever is less, you get into these anomalies of large acreages and 100 acres kind of thing. The only other note I'd make on this is, we referenced the planning director position, and that has since changed, and I would suggest, and this is more of a scrivener's adjustment, to a zoning administrator or designee as the person.
Yeah, I'd feel a lot better if we went back and looked at that and made that more in line with what we're, I mean, full disclosure, I didn't work on this. This has not been something I've worked on, but
Right.
it's plan development mixed use. It just seems that these standards don't exactly back up that top line. And then I agree with Jim that the wording is confusing, awkward, misleading.
one possibility, we talk about 30% of the gross acreage of the site. To Teal's point, another way at this is to say, is to keep the 30%, but talk about 30% of the developed area. Because there's,
So if I got 500 acres, I leave 200 acres, open space.
yeah, or it can't be developed. It's wetlands and other
Yeah,
kind of things.
okay.
It sort of comes out of the equation. That's the problem, I think, is that triggered this, is that you take the 500 acre example. If I've got 500 acres, I really can only develop realistically, let's say half of it, just to pick a thing. But these numbers apply to the whole thing, so I'm gonna be.
So that, I think your point, it actually skews it. Yeah, developable area gets it down to, you're setting aside no more than 30% of that for commercial, leaving the balance of 70% to be made up of open space and residential.
Well,
Or undeveloped.
Or undeveloped.
maybe we need to think about a different scale, and maybe instead of acreage, maybe we should look more housing units. You can do X, you have to do, in order to get X
Well,
number
that's
of
limited
housing
already.
units.
It's limited to 12. I mean, there's a trigger in your, under F.
12 units per acre.
And that's if you cap the maximum density bonus. So that-
Where are you, so I can see what you're saying?
Same section, F. Well, actually, you can start up at C.
What page are you on?
4 of 6, I'm at line 64. See, we have a density limit already of 6.
Well, but that's per acre. I'm talking about total number of units.
Yeah, and if you add to the open space, you can get it up, you can go up to.
So I mean, if you're getting 6 dwelling units per acre, then it makes it a whole lot easier to, 6 dwelling units per acre, you can cram a lot of houses. I don't care how much wetlands there are.
Well, I mean, this would be a very dense, mixed use is a dense thing.
Right. But again, the carrot is that we're getting commercial out of it.
Right. Yeah, and
Our carrot is the commercial, the developer's carrot's the residential.
yeah, we've been down that path a few times. Well, maybe the idea is to find a way of sort of taking out of the calculation those areas that aren't that can't be developed. Because that's what, tends to,
Well, I mean, if we just take the swamp out, that we can't be used as open area, I mean, we still want some usable open area. And I'm not sure how, if you just say, okay, the non-developable, it's swamp, it can't be used for anything other than the critters that live there.
right,
In large-scale development, you're going to have at the net, a lot of acreage devoted to roads, to rights-of-way. and things like
Stormwater
this,
ponds.
Stormwater ponds, that are being used for something, but it would be,
I mean, just looked at from a project standpoint, it seems like there should be a correlation, regardless of acreage, between commercial development and residential development. There should be some kind of correlation there. And I can't tell you the best way to do it, but I don't think this is it.
So when we approve this, we're gonna be approving the master plan, that becomes the zoning. When we start putting numbers in here, are we locked into those? Or when we look at this thing, we can say, oh yeah, he's got some good open space, here's the commercial. We can approve this thing, and I'm just saying, if we put numbers in here, are we bound by those numbers?
Well, I think that's a good point, Lee, because I thought one of the ideas with this type of zoning approach was developers can sort of bring us a proposal and
we can look at it, but, if we didn't like the proposal, I would hate to be held bound to what we said here, if it wasn't,
well, you could solve that by taking the first word in line 61 out, which is minimum.
the minimum.
And replace it with, preferred, or,
If we deviate from the standards we've put in here, we can the developer doesn't really have much to complain about. Where we would probably have a bigger issue is if some neighbors filed suit and said you approve this in significant deviation from your standards, that would be where we would probably have a problem.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean, Tom.
If a developer comes in, he can't say, well, your standard says, because this is a planned development. What I would be concerned about is if some of the neighbors didn't like the development,
If we leave the current wording in and then we deviate.
if we deviate significantly from what we have listed as standards, it opens a door for citizens to say you are arbitrary and capricious. you
But if we
violated-"
make ambiguity a part of it, then we don't have to
if
worry
we say
about that.
words like prefer or
Right,
something.
when we
Right,
make
okay.
ambiguity,
Target.
because then we're exercising our legislative discretion.
Guidelines.
Guidelines, because, I mean, I think the way this is worded, as someone reviewing a project, I would think this, where it says minimum standards,
that's what it means.
That's what it means.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
right.
expect that.
And I think that's the core issue, is that,
Yeah,
there,
we just wanna see his plan, and if we like it, okay. And if we say, well, you need a little more open space, or you need to do a few other things here, those are things we can.
Well, the very next section we call guidelines, general site layout guidelines.
But we have words like shall.
minimums, maximums, and shall are tough words.
The General Assembly's actually toying with doing away with the word shall and not allowing it in state code.
Really?
Yeah.
Why not? Well, how do we feel about turning this into
Guideline versus.
guideline, I guess is, or a preferred, or some such
Guidance
word as that.
policies.
I think that solves the problem.
I mean, I'm glad Lee said that, because that triggered that part of my frontal cortex, that's really the whole idea here, was to allow
Give
this
them
to be
some
kind of a
wiggle room.
canvas, and the
Give-
developer
yeah.
can come in and paint a
Yeah.
picture.
But we also didn't want something that is way off in right or left field.
Right.
That's the problem, is how do you, the tails of the curve out there, that's, you don't wanna have to
So
get
if
hung
you-
up with those.
So if you switch all this to guidelines, this is what we're generally looking for, then it gives the developer something to put, some guidelines to putting it together. But if we change most of the language to generally and guidelines, we can certainly probably solve the problem globally.
Yeah, that's a better fix, I think.
I do too.
You want us to rework the language to get into the permissive guidance, targets?
Well, when are we triggering a new process? Back to planning commission, back to.
I think you're
Yeah,
triggering a new process.
What if we change one word?
Depends on the word.
Well, the word we would change would be the first word in line 61. I mean, that's sort of that doesn't solve the global problem, but it addresses the immediate one. You substitute that word.
Yeah.
What, we've come though with a major philosophical change by going to guidelines versus standards. And I would think that Tom was right, it probably requires.
I would argue that you're right. We haven't changed the philosophical stance at all. What we were trying to accomplish all along was as you described it. What we didn't do was have words that reflected that.
But people do judge you by the words you use.
So we send it back to the drawing board?
How about if we work on some rewrite of this section? I jumped down to the other one, Sandra and I caught this line 84, neighborhood core, the site shall have a neighborhood core between, I mean, that's pretty prescriptive. This is what you're gonna have, you can't deviate from it. So if we go back through and pick out these mandatories versus permissive, and come back with a redraft of this for you all, if you're comfortable with it, then we can go back through the drill.
Yeah, I really think that, the process was kind of infected by standard thought instead of, we're working on something different here.
But we had gotten this as a favorable suggestion from a professional. Here's some things that make it more clear. That was kind of the genesis of it. He was an engineer.
Well, he tried to take the literal
Right.
text and apply it, and he went,
They don't
wait a
work.
minute.
It don't work.
At some point, this curve doesn't keep extending.
The very point of plan development is flexibility.
And
Well, we say that.
And we ought,
The intent of this district is to
we ought to
permit
look at
flexibility.
the other areas, the residential and commercial, and see if we have that same kind of philosophy there.
I think on the mixed use, the planned commercial development, if I remember the discussions were along the lines of, we want to pretty much say that within these are the expectations for residential and commercial. On the mixed use was, here, you all come up with something, but also the development community wants something to know what's expected, at least some expectation. I think if we can work on this mixed use and come in with more permissive, more guidance, and that would work.
Well, over on line 114, it's sidewalk criteria. Sidewalks shall be provided on both sides of the streets within the project area unless the planning director determines that placing a sidewalk on only one side of the street is reasonable for the specific development. Well, just, no, don't require anything. Say that generally, we want sidewalks.
Right.
You know, we don't want you not putting in sidewalks because that's gonna save you a few $1,000. In general, we want sidewalks. If you have a really good reason for not putting sidewalks, then we'll look at that.
Or putting one side, or if you want both
Yeah.
sides.
You can usually get some language somewhere in here that would say, any alterations or any changes or anything that, I don't wanna say use the word deviation, because that's too prescriptive, would need to be, at least have some justification for it.
Seems like to me that what we should do is describe what we want. What kind of community do we want? What are we looking for? And then ask the developers to give us their rendition of how we get there.
The only shall, you shall provide us a creative solution.
I mean, when you get into sidewalks, it's like, probably if you got a mixed-use development that doesn't have sidewalks, that's probably gonna be other things wrong with that submission beyond sidewalks. I think in a process that's supposed to kind of open it up and allow creativity and different, different projects to all flourish, we're falling back into the routine of zoning ordinances and subdivision ordinances that says, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you can't do this.
Tom,
Oh, yeah.
when we get into a situation where somebody's come in with a master plan, to what degree are we allowed to or prohibited from negotiating, in terms of, well, you don't have enough of this, or you've got too much of this?
We're broad flexibility, because approving a zoning is a legislative act, so as long as you're not becoming arbitrary,
Okay.
we have broad discretion.
As long as
All
you're
right,
not
okay.
capricious.
And these will likely
And
be
capricious.
conditional zonings, so there'll be proffers that will be able to be developed that will address.
Right. I mean, this is how, in Henrico County, every single development in Henrico is done this way, with proffers and basically a planned development where the entire development is laid out with proffers. That's how Henrico does everything.
And that's where we were trying to go with this, but I think you make a good point. When we're hanging things out there after the words shall and minimum and maximum, and all we're doing is creating
The old
headaches.
way.
Yeah, it's the worst combination of both.
Let's,
Pretending we're new when we're actually, not.
how about if we just take a stab at getting, here, no minimum, the shells and the prescription and prescriptive, and go back and scrub this.
How about we do this? How about you do that, but let's not put the planning commission through another effort until we've taken a look at it, either
Right,
in the
my
form of
intent
a
was to
work
bring
session
it-
or something. I don't wanna have them go get another rock. That makes no sense
No,
either.
my intent was to bring this back to you all at a work session before we would send it back to the planning commission.
I'm not sure I would wanna have to delay the thing on mixed use, but I think we also would like to be able to look at commercial and the residential in the same idea of approving a master plan as opposed to any maxims or minimums or shalls or wills.
Yeah, there's
But I mean,
all three of them should be
I
looked
think
at.
we ought to just work on this one, because this is probably the one that we need to deal with first. But I think as we work this, then we can come back and look at the other two.
I think we need to massively go through this and reduce it down to about a quarter of what it is right now. Because mainly what it's full of is those shalls and maximums and minimums. If you take those out and just say, this is what we're looking for, we want a mix of commercial and residential with walkable streets and yada, 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 whatever it is that we want.
We tried to get there
live, work, and
in the
play.
steering committee. I remember.
Yeah.
That was,
Well,
talk about pushing a rope.
You may need some professional help. And I don't
We need
I don't
professional
mean
help.
that kind of
We
professional.
had professional help.
I mean, part of the problem here is probably wordsmithing. There's somebody who you can kind of, talk to and explain what you want.
Can you put it in words so it
And,
doesn't become
and I'm just laughing because we've tried that before and it didn't work, but I'm sure there are cases where it does work. And this is, again, this is not something that no one's ever done before. There are other counties that have done this, and probably there is some language we can,
plagiarized?
yeah, exactly, some boilerplate.
All right.
We'll take, with the guidance that you all have given us, we will rework this, mixed use to make it more permissive and, less specificity.
I'm glad we looked at it, even for this simple 100 versus 30%, really got us to think a little different.
Yeah, the 100 thing was just one symptom of a much larger problem.
I guess we have direction.
Do we need a motion to defer this thing then, or
just do nothing?
Do nothing.
do nothing? Okay. I can do.
I like do nothing. I need another motion.
Move that we terminate this meeting.